In today's video, the horrible deaths of the men who killed Jesus Christ. Before I proceed, please subscribe to my channel. Prologue: the night the world changed. Jerusalem was restless that Passover. Pilgrims swarmed the streets. Lambs bleated in the courtyards, and Roman soldiers watched from every corner with the cold discipline of men trained to quench uprisings before they could spark. In the upper quarters of the city, a secret council was meeting under the cover of night. Men with hardened hearts, their minds consumed with one goal: the silencing of the Galilean called Jesus. The moon hung low over the Mount of Olives, casting silver light over the city's walls. Inside the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus prayed, his face wet with sweat like drops of blood. His disciples slept in exhaustion, unaware that the footsteps of betrayal were drawing near. Then came Judas, face shadowed, eyes glinting with the greed he had disguised for years. Behind him trailed temple guards with torches and weapons. Judas approached Jesus with a mock gesture of love. A kiss, that kiss, cold and calculated, set in motion the most infamous chain of events in human history. What those men did that night, and in the hours that followed, would lead not only to the brutal execution of the Son of God, but also to their own terrible ends. This is the story of each man, how they lived and how they died. Chapter 1, Judas Iscariot, the betrayer's noose. Judas Iscariot had walked with Jesus for 3 years. He had seen the miracles, the blind receiving sight, the lame walking, the dead raised. He had eaten the bread and fish multiplied by divine hands. But his heart, instead of melting, hardened with each act of mercy. The Gospels tell us he was a keeper of the disciples' money bag, and a thief. Silver had always caught his eye, but 30 pieces of it? That was enough for him to sell the life of the Messiah. After handing Jesus over to the priests, Judas watched events spiral faster than he had imagined. Perhaps he thought Jesus would escape, as he had before. But as he saw Jesus condemned, beaten, and led away to Pilate, the weight of his betrayal crushed him. Matthew records his frantic steps to the temple, coins clinking in his trembling hands. He threw the silver onto the cold stone floor before the priests. "I have sinned," he cried, "for I have betrayed innocent blood." The priest's reply was as heartless as the bargain they had struck. "What is that to us? See it yourself." Judas fled into the streets, the world spinning around him. Guilt clawed at his mind like a wild beast. Finally, in a lonely field outside the city, he looped a rope over a tree branch. As he stepped off the rock beneath his feet, the branch groaned and the rope tightened. His body swayed in the wind until it fell, bursting open, a grim spectacle for all who passed by. The money he had returned was used to buy the field of blood, fulfilling the prophecy of Zechariah. So they weighed out my wages, 30 pieces of silver, and they gave them for the potter's field. Judas's death was the first, swift and violent, but it would not be the last. Chapter 2, Caiaphas, the high priest who tore his robes. Caiaphas, the high priest that year, was a man of political skill. He had kept his position for nearly 2 decades, navigating the dangerous waters between Roman overlords and Jewish nationalists. When Jesus' influence grew too strong, Caiaphas viewed him not as a prophet, but as a threat. In the council chamber, he had declared with chilling clarity, "It is better for you that one man dies for the people than that the whole nation perish." That night, when Jesus stood bound before him, Caiaphas demanded, "Tell us if you are Christ, the Son of God." When Jesus answered, "I am," Caiaphas tore his robes in a display of outrage and cried, "Blasphemy! Why do we need any more witnesses?" The decision was sealed death. But history tells us Caiaphas did not end well. Ancient Jewish sources and church traditions indicate that he was removed from office by the Romans just a few years after crucifixion. Stripped of power, Caiaphas became a political exile, despised by both Jews and Gentiles. His wealth diminished, his influence vanished, and his name became synonymous with treachery. Some accounts say he died in disgrace in the Judean countryside, rejected by his own people. A fitting end for a man who once held the highest spiritual office in Israel, yet used it to condemn the Son of God. Chapter 3, Pontius Pilate, the governor who washes hands. Pilate's name has been carved into both Roman and Christian history. He was the governor of Judea, a man known for his cruelty and quick temper. Yet when Jesus was brought before him, Pilate saw no crime worthy of death. 3 times he tried to release him, but the voices of the crowd, stirred up by the priests, grew louder. "Crucify him! Crucify him!" When the mob shouted, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar," Pilate's political survival instinct kicked in. He called for a basin, washed his hands before the multitude, and said, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." But water cannot cleanse the stain of injustice. Historical writings in the 2nd century, Eusebius, Philo, and others, tell of Pilate's decline. After a massacre in Samaria, he was recalled to Rome to answer for his brutality. Stripped of his post, he reportedly fell into deep despair. Some traditions say he was banished to Gaul, modern France, where, overcome with guilt over Jesus' death, he committed suicide by falling on his own sword. In Christian legend, his ghost is condemned to wander the earth, forever washing his hands. Chapter 4, Herod Antipas, the fox who mocked the king. Herod Antipas, son of the infamous Herod the Great, was ruler of Galilee. He had already executed John the Baptist, and when Jesus was sent to him by Pilate, he saw it as a chance for entertainment. He questioned Jesus at length, hoping to see a miracle, but Jesus remained silent. Herod and his soldiers mocked him, dressing him in a bright robe before sending him back to Pilate. Years later, Herod's political life collapsed. According to the historian Josephus, Herod was accused of treason against Caesar and banished to Gaul. Stripped of his kingdom, he died in obscurity and misery. Some legends claim he was eaten alive by worms, echoing the fate of another Herod in Acts 12. Chapter 5, Annas, the silent power behind the robe. Long before Caiaphas wore the high priest's robes, there was Annas, the old serpent of the priesthood. Though officially deposed by the Romans, Annas' influence ran deep. 5 of his sons, and now his son-in-law Caiaphas, had all held the sacred office. It was Annas who first examined Jesus the night of his arrest, while torches flickered against the cold stone walls of his house. In that private interrogation, Annas sought some statement to condemn him, but Jesus' answers exposed the hypocrisy of the priesthood. Frustrated, Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas. Jewish historians write little of Annas' final years, but early Christian tradition paints a grim picture. His family's prestige crumbled, his sons died violently, and his name became a bitter curse among the people. The one who had been the puppet master of Jerusalem's religious politics died, surrounded not by honor, but by the wreckage of his legacy, a man remembered as a shadow behind the murder of the Messiah. Chapter 6, the Sanhedrin, judges condemned by the law. The Sanhedrin was the supreme court of Israel, 70 elders, scribes, and priests. That night, they gathered not for justice, but for conspiracy. Witnesses were bribed, testimonies twisted. The trial of Jesus was not only illegal by their own law, it was the most corrupt verdict in history. Some among them may have felt a flicker of doubt, but the fear of losing power kept their mouths shut. When Caiaphas cried, "He is worthy of death," no one dared object. Years later, Jerusalem burned. In AD 70, the Roman legions under Titus crushed the city, tore down the temple, and slaughtered its inhabitants. Many members of that generation of leaders perished in the siege, dying by famine, fire, or the sword. Those who survived were dragged in chains to Rome, paraded through the streets before the mocking crowds, then sold into slavery or executed. The council that condemned the Son of God was itself condemned by history. Their marble meeting halls were reduced to rubble. Their names became forgotten dust, save for the infamy of that night. Chapter 7, the soldiers who nailed him. The Roman execution squad, assigned to Golgotha, was hardened to death. Crucifixion was their trade. They had driven nails into countless wrists and feet without a tremor in their hands. But that day, something was different. They mocked him with a crown of thorns, pressed it into his brow, and clothed him in purple. They struck his face, spat upon him, and knelt in fake homage. Then they led him to the place of the skull and stretched his arms against the wood. The hammer fell, the nails bit deep, and the Son of God was lifted up before heaven and earth. Roman military tradition kept little record of common soldiers, but early Christian accounts speak of strange fates befalling some of that unit. One was said to have gone mad. hearing hammer blows in his sleep until he took his own life. Another, struck by plague, cried out on his deathbed that the King of the Jews was indeed the Son of God. The Gospels record that a centurion overseeing the execution confessed, "Surely this man was the Son of God." Whether that confession saved him or sealed his judgment, history does not say, but Rome itself, the empire that had crucified Christ, would one day fall in humiliation before the cross it tried to destroy. Chapter 8. The crowd leaders, voices that curse themselves. Not everyone in the mob that day knew what they were doing, but some did. Certain leaders in the crowd stirred up the people, urging them to choose Barabbas over Jesus. When Pilate asked, "Shall I crucify your king?" they shouted back with chilling words, "We have no king but Caesar." And then, perhaps the most haunting cry in human history, "His blood be on us and on our children." 40 years later, their words returned like a curse. In the siege of Jerusalem, famine drove mothers to unspeakable acts. Children perished in the streets, their bodies unburied. Roman catapults pounded the city walls until they collapsed. Fire consumed the temple. Blood ran to the gutters, their own blood and the blood of their children. The crowd that once roared for his death had roared their own doom. Chapter 9, the aftermath, the curse that outlived them all. Within one generation, nearly every key figure who had taken part in Jesus' death had been stripped of power, exiled, killed by violence, or died in disgrace. Jerusalem itself lay in ruins, its temple gone, its people scattered to the winds. The judgment was not random. It had been foretold. Jesus had wept over the city, saying, "The days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment against you and encircle you. They will not leave one stone on another, because you did not recognize the time of God's coming to you." History bears witness that his words came true with terrible precision. Epilogue. The cross stand when the world falls. The men who killed Jesus thought they were ending a threat. Instead, they fulfilled the greatest prophecy and sealed their own destruction. Judas's rope, Caiaphas' disgrace, Pilate's suicide, Herod's exile, Annas' ruined dynasty, the Sanhedrin slaughter, the soldiers' torment, the crowd's curse. All these became footnotes under the shadow of the cross. For the cross still stands. Empires have risen and fallen, but the message remains. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The horrible deaths of these men are not just historical curiosities. They are warnings. Power fades, wealth rots, and human judgment is flawed. But the one they condemned lives forever. Thanks for watching.